Hello everyone, my name is Pragati Dharmale and I'm going to talk about selection control structure. I have prepared this lesson for entry-level programming language course. Now, selection control structure are also called as conditional statements. The objective and learning outcomes of this lesson will be the student will be able to understand what is selection control structure, what is the need of it, what are the types of selection control structure, and how to implement it using Java. I've also included the resources to refer. The student can refer chapter number 5 of book Think Java, How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. I've also included a resource, YouTube resource, which can be referred for understanding about selection control statement in a fun way. Now, when we talk about selection control structure, as I said, it is also called as conditional statements. They are used to make decisions in a program. So you can control the flow of a program using the conditional statements. A conditional statements evaluate a true or a false or a Boolean expression to determine whether a certain block of code should be executed or skipped. There are mainly three types of conditional statements: if statement, if else statement, and if else statement. One more conditional statement is switch statement. They are the fundamental part of programming and are used extensively in many applications. So for example, let's say if I want to decide whether to take an umbrella or not while going outside. So it depends upon whether it is raining outside or not. So for example, if it is raining outside, if the answer to the question is yes, take an umbrella, right? So this is a simple if statement, a one-way if statement, wherein we are evaluating only the expression for yes. Similarly, if I want to talk about, I want to decide on whether to wear a winter jacket or summer clothes. Now, again, this decision will be made based upon a condition whether it is cold outside. So, if it is snowing outside, if the answer is yes, then I would say wear a winter jacket, or if it is not snowing outside or if it is not cold, wear summer clothes. So, it would look something like this. So basically, when we talk about selection control statement, we ask a question and there will be two outcomes of this question, either a yes or a no. And based upon whether it is a yes or a no, a certain segment of code will be executed. Okay, so maybe I can write a code over here saying wear a coat and a code over here that wear shorts. So this is if else statement, and if else if statement is involved when you have to take when you have multiple conditions to check. So when more than one decision is involved in a program. So when we look at the syntax of if statement, so if statement looks like this, wherein it says if the condition is true. So for example, herein it says if this condition that you have applied over here is true, execute a code segment. If else says if this condition that you are putting over here is true, execute this. If it is not true, then execute the else part. So the thing is, this condition that you're providing inside the bracket with the if has to hold true for the Java code to execute. If else if looks like if the condition one, as I said, when you have to test more than one condition, we use if else if statement. So if condition one is true, execute this portion of the code. Else if this condition is true, execute this portion of the code. Else execute this portion of the code. So if none of the condition is true, execute this portion of the code. How many else if can I use? I can use as many else if as I want, which satisfy the problem statement according to the problem statement. Now next, we do not provide a condition in the else part here. Okay, so if you're putting it, your compiler will give you an error. So, and can I, again, one more common programming mistake is people write it as if, else, and then else if. No. it does not work like that. You have to follow the syntax. Syntax means the rules that you have to follow while writing a program. Otherwise, your compiler provides an error. So the sequence has to be if, then else if, and then else. Similarly, for if else, it should be if and then else. Now, to check the condition, you would require certain operators, which we call it as relational operators. Now, the relational operators are, it is similar to the operator that we use in maths, that is greater than, less than, greater than or equals to. So for example, I have A as 10, B as 20. So if I want to check if A is greater than B, 10 is not greater than B. So it will evaluate to false. So similarly, greater than or equals to, this is less than or equals to, double is equals to is used to check whether two values are equal or not. So if A is 10 and B is 20, and if I want to check if A is equals to B, then we use it double equals to operator, and this one is not equals to operator, which will evaluate whether A is not equals to B. So 10 is not equals to B, 10 is not equals to 20, that is why it is evaluated to true. Now, how to use it in a programming? So to use it in a programming, suppose I have to write a program over here, and I'm going to ask the user to enter two numbers, and depending upon the condition, I'm checking if A is greater than, if the number 1 is greater than number 2 or not. So I'm just gonna, this is an online IDE. I'm gonna just show it over here. So I have created a scanner object here to seek the user input, where I'm asking the user to enter number 1, and herein enter number 2. It will be stored in variable number 1 and number 2. Now, if I have to use an if-else statement, I'm gonna ask here if number 1 is greater than number 2, then in that case, I'm going to print it as, I'm going to say system.out.println, and I'm going to say number 1 is greater than, and I'm going to say plus number 2. So if number 1 is greater than number 2, if this condition is true, it will evaluate this, else it will evaluate that number 2 is greater than number 1. So herein, I'm going to write it as else. So for example, herein the user enter a number 45, user enter a number 2 as 67. It is going to check here if 45 is greater than 67. Now this here will evaluate, 45 is greater than 67, no, false. Now, since the answer is false, it will not execute this set of Java statement, and it will execute the else part of Java statement. So it will say that number 2, which is 67, is greater than number 1. So for example, let's run this code and check. Okay, so it is asking me to enter number 1, and I'm gonna now enter the same number 45 and 67, and it is printing 67 is greater than 45. Let's test it for the other case. So for example, herein, this time I'll enter 89 and let's say 90. So this time, this one, number 1 is greater than number 2. Okay, I'm gonna put it as 90, let's say. Okay, well, I won't be okay. So this time it is printing this. Let's give the first number a bigger value. So let's say 990, and it is printing 900 is greater than 90, because this condition will evaluate to true. Now, one of the use case that I have used here is a calculator. So this one is created in Java. Now herein you can see it is asking the user to select the type of quiz. So the user has to make decision whether he want to go to addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So for example, the user entered addition. Now herein, if the answer is wrong, it is saying that is incorrect. And it is again asking me whether you want to play again or no. So if I say yes, it will produce another one, and herein I'll put the correct answer. So if the answer is correct, it will say that is correct. And if I'll say no, so this involves one more decision here, enter, and it will exit. So herein, there are many places wherein I'm taking a decision. So herein, for example, select the type of quiz. So any quiz that the user select, accordingly, it will work, right? And herein, if the user select that he does not want to continue, then it will exit. Now herein also one decision is being made, wherein if the user select exit, the program will exit. So I hope I was able to make you understand how does the if-else-if statement work. Now in my slide, I have also included some practice exercises. So if you click on this link, it will take you to a document which has many practice exercises to practice the programs. And I completely believe that programming can only be learned through practice. It's like mathematics, wherein you have to practice to understand how the things work. Well, that's all about the control structure or the selection statements. And I hope that you understood what I taught in this lesson. Thank you, everyone. Happy coding. Thank you.